Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I would like to wish everybody here a happy Easter weekend. Friday we spent time with family and friends enjoying a nice fish dinner, Aruban style, and we had a good time. The rest of this weekend I'll probably be chilling with friends and having a quiet dinner here at home. Sunday will be a nice day for a hike if the weather holds up. I hope you guys also had the opportunity to spend time with family and get out in nature and smell the fresh air now that spring has sprung. Today I have one comment I would like to share and two encounter stories to share with you all, one of which was sent in by Teresa. Okay, let's get started. If you have an encounter story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story with like-minded people. Now sit back and relax as we begin with today's episode. So this comes from a short I posted called Pig Ripped in Half, North Queensland. EM comments, finding this is extraordinary, but finding it is one thing. Realizing that the predator is still in the bush is hard to understand. But this is their backyard and you're in it. It has only been left there because you've interrupted its hunting efforts. Here in Idaho, Montana border, USA, I have seen a full-size 1,400-pound elk with ripped-off heads and the body just laying there, after having to pay a worker for snow removal and getting stuck in the snow. In steep mountains, having to get out and walk down a hill to find their house, which I figured I passed. The forest was thick, dark, with super deep ravine, and I had a very strong feeling of being watched as I inspected the elk, and having no gun. The Highland Werewolf Hunter Continental Divide. Sasquatch or werewolves have the strength of 1,000 men, and is a trait of their behavior. When a huge animal of weight, bull, cattle, elk, its body weight acts as an anchor, weak pivoting point to rip a neck head clean off. Leverage. We are infested with both species out here. This encounter takes place in December of 1995. We're going to be heading to Tattnall County, Georgia, and the nearest town is Glenville. Myself, an infantry squad leader, and two other squad leaders with two privates were assigned to do a recon of another unit a few miles away. We did not have time to decide a route. It was getting dark. We set out with a map and a compass. Our route took us through near chest-deep swamp for several hundred meters. We came out of the water probably about a mile from our other unit. Shortly after exiting the water, we could hear something or someone following us. We thought maybe it was our instructors, but decided it couldn't be. No one in their right mind would have followed us through the water, and no one knew the route we were taking. Although we didn't see it, it was easily within 25 yards. It would come up behind us. When you would expect to see it, it would cut off to the right or left, go around us, fade off, and then we would hear it come around again. This went on for about 10 or 15 minutes. Wanting to see it, we tried to trick it by having Sergeant W and Private P sit tight, and the rest of us would move out slowly. Then in 5 minutes, they would pick up and move out. The thing started weaving in and out of the two groups like a figure 8. Then we couldn't hear it anymore. We met up a couple of hundred yards later with the two other soldiers, and they said the same thing, that it came between the two groups, around them, towards us, like it knew exactly where we were, even though we couldn't see it. Later, at about 400 meters from our objectives, we sent in a patrol base and decided that we would conduct the last phase in a two-man team, with myself and Sergeant H going first, Sergeant W and Private P and Private S staying at the patrol base until our return in a couple of hours, at which time two others of the patrol would go out. This is when it got really weird. We were about halfway to the objectives when we heard something following us again. We got to the opposite side of whatever open area and laid down facing the direction of the noises. Probably 5 minutes passed, and all of a sudden, this scream roar is the only way that I can explain it. We looked at each other and said, "What the hell was that?" We had never heard anything like that before. About a minute later, it screamed again, and then we heard what sounded like a huge rotten tree falling and brush breaking. This was the last we heard, and the last I wanted to hear. A little about myself. I'm 27 years old at the time, from the mountains of West Virginia, combat veteran, hunted small and large game since 8 years old. The soldier with me was from North Carolina, outdoorsman, very woods-wise, 28 years old at the time of the incident. Hard for me to sit down and write this. I haven't told very many people of this in fear of being laughed at. I know that whatever it was didn't want us there, and it was intelligent. Okay, so this is the last one for today. This happened back in 2003, and Teresa was kind enough to send in her encounter story. Now, this takes place in Quinte County in Ontario, but when I type that in, all I get is Prince Edward County. There are a couple of campgrounds in this area, two of which I've heard of before. The third one I've never heard of before, and it looks very intriguing, actually. But I will not mention any of those names. So let's get to her encounter. Hi, Venka. I thought I would finally share this story with you. You can share my first name if you'd like. It happened back around 2003, and I have never shared it with anyone before because I wasn't sure what it was, but after hearing about other people's story, I am now convinced it was a juvenile Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, as some people call it. My ex-husband and I loved camping. We even spent our honeymoon camping at our favorite campground in Quinte County in Ontario. I won't mention their name because I did not get their permission to use it. It was a small campground that offered both tent and campers' camping sites. Obviously, their trailers had seasonal amenities and rates. We always booked in advance at our favorite site as it was close to Lake Ontario. Yes, the lake is big enough to offer clean beaches and swimming opportunities the further you go from Toronto. This site was just down the trail path from the permanent site of our Toronto neighbors who told us about this area. In fact, we could see their front door on their camper from our site if we turned to look at it, as we tended to place our tent in the front entrance facing the lake, which incidentally was around 30 feet away. However, this one weekend, we weren't able to get the site we wanted, so we settled for the second favorite site we used when friends would join us. This weekend was shortly after they opened for the season and still relatively cold in May. We traveled everywhere with our two big dogs because we loved hiking and going for rides exploring other places around there. Slam, our shepherd, was wonderful to strangers as long as you didn't approach our house, or in this case, our tent. Maddie, my Rottweiler, was a sweetheart and loved everyone, and of course very protective of us and our home tent as well. We allowed our dogs in our tent because we didn't want them to get cold, but truth be told, we brought them in for warmth when it was cold and protection when it wasn't. LOL. This particular weekend, we headed up to see our neighbor John up the path some 60 feet away for a quick coffee to warm up after getting in rather late on the Friday night evening, and putting up the tent in the dark, and to charge our phones, plus our dogs loved John and his wife Bam. We headed back and we were talking about how glad we were that nobody comes camping here until June at least, and we get the entire tent camping area all to ourselves, so we could let our dogs off leash for a bit. The dogs were running ahead and sniffing around and waiting for us to get into the tent and cuddle up with us. We always bring our boots in because, having experienced cold, wet boots before, I would wrap them in plastic bags and place them to the left of the zipper part, and our flashlights just above our heads. We each had one. I had always slept closer to the entrance so that I could get out in the middle of the night for a pee. It's a girl thing. Maddie the Roddy slept at my head and Slam at my feet in front of me, being closer to the entrance than I, and my husband behind me. We just settled in, and shortly after my husband was snoring, and I of course took longer to fall asleep because of this. I was laying there and I can hear something outside walking by the side of the tent towards the entrance. It sounded like human footsteps. The dogs did a soft growl and a whiny sound like they knew who it was. I sat up and grabbed my flashlight to see who was at the entrance. The dogs backed off and growled as they stepped onto my husband, who sat up as well, and asked me what was going on, and I said, I don't know. As he grabbed his flashlight and moved towards the entrance, we noticed this huge mass was pressing and fumbling at the entrance. I decided to kick at it with both my feet. All we could see was what looked like a brown-colored mass now in the light of our flashlights. It barely moved back as I swore, F this solid piece of shit. My husband flew forward to unzip the flap, and as he did, our dogs whined and hid behind us. The flap was pushed back to reveal what looked like a gorilla face and head crouched down, smiling, or what looked like a grin with square chiclet-like teeth and close-set eyes with brown fur face. I think it was a juvenile Bigfoot. My husband and I looked at each other and laughed out loud, thinking it was our friend John pulling a joke on us. My husband yelled out, "Very funny, John." And as I turned to grab my boots the same time my husband did, I saw it jump so quick it was a complete blur as it went to the left of the tent. We quickly put on our boots and jumped out along with our dogs, who started to bark and display teeth, lunging ahead of us. We called them back as we stood there, realizing that there was no way it was our friend, because he couldn't have moved that fast, let alone cover 60 feet to his trailer, and besides which, I think he would have waited for us to get out and have a laugh. We stood there wondering, first of all, why our guard-protecting breeds of dogs whined like they knew who or what it was, or were they genuinely scared and we were too stupid to be. We could see nothing or nobody around, and we could see a light being turned on at John and Bam's trailer. We heard other dogs in the campground starting to bark, pretty much waking up other people in their trailers as well. We decided to walk over with our dogs on leash to see our friends and relay our story. They were totally shocked to hear it. John was still in his flannel jammies and had that just got up look on his face, so we knew there was no way it was him. We decided we would stay up till the morning and have breakfast and maybe see if a few other campers had seen anything. Nobody did, so we just thought it was a prank pulled by another camper, seeing we were the only ones at the end of the park, being the tenters. Anyway, that was my story. Please share if you'd like. I do have 3 other stories that I can share in the future, now that I believe Bigfoot exists in Ontario. Well, I hope you all enjoyed these encounters today. I would definitely say those soldiers got outsmarted by something out in Georgia. And Teresa, thank you so much for sharing your encounter. I would definitely like to hear your other encounters, and wow, to have a close-up with a juvenile Sasquatch. I mean, you must have only been a few feet apart, like literally face to face. I would have crapped my pants personally. The fact that you thought it was your friend initially was a little strange. Do you think the juvenile was somehow making you unafraid of it? I have a lot of questions, but we can save it for another time. Okay, it's time to thank the current OC members. The current members are Elizabeth, Jim, Diana, and Teresa. Thank you so much for all your support. I will be putting an updated video soon on the new OC membership program. If these stories reminded you of an encounter you've had and would like to share, then please forward them to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out and smash the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. And everyone, Have yourselves a wonderful Easter weekend, and we'll see you all next week right here on Ontario Cryptids.